Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you're having a good one. Before I hop into the little vlog here, King Leopard's out this week. You can get the blue edition. Get a new physical edition. It'll be blue. It's the exact same thing as the Kickstarter edition here. It's just a little bit different color, so it's special and different from what people got with the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter one's also special and different. For those of you who are in Europe who it just was too expensive to ship the product, you should be able to buy it off Amazon and pay for all of your local printing and stuff like that. They print it over there, and it just makes it easier. Okay, so that's your opportunity to buy the physicals. They might be out by the time you watch this video, so check the link down below. The ebook is out this Friday. Okay, so I like to release the physicals a little bit ahead of time so people can get them shipped and everybody can kind of be reading their story at the same time if that's what people want to be doing. Of course, if you back the Kickstarter, you've had it for a while, and I would appreciate if you left a review. So if you read the book and you feel like leaving a review, just click that link and drop a couple stars. And hopefully you enjoyed the story, but the reviews really help me on the Amazon side of things, the long tail, to sell to people who don't know me very well through things like YouTube. So anyway, I wanted to do a vlog, and I may try this format kind of going forward, because I don't always know what to talk about, or I don't feel like there's things that I just need to talk at length about to fill up 10 minutes, because the robot loves 10 minutes of subject matter. But also to just talk about like what's on my mind, what I'm thinking about, and get some feedback on that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm thinking about this week is actually my vacation, which I'm going to put some quotes around it. It's a vacation. We're going to see my wife's family in California. And so we're going to travel and do that. And it should be fun. There's people I love to see, but we're also going to probably have to take care of some issues with my father-in-law and his decline. Those are always messy things that you have to take care of. He is suffering some ill health. Part of this ill health has to do with choices he's made in his past. Some of it is choices he's made in the present. But the thing is, it's really hard to get someone in the place that they need to be if they don't want to go there. So if we're talking about like assisted living or maybe more intensive kind of care, in order to force someone to go there requires a whole lot of legal hoops to jump through, where it's much easier to persuade someone. But if someone doesn't want to be persuaded there and they're not really safe, for instance, living on their own, it becomes really complicated to deal with. So trying to deal with like, power of attorney or a guardianship or that kind of stuff, it's always really messy. And for anyone that's had to deal with a family member that has suffered like a serious health decline, it's messy. It's not fun to deal with. My father-in-law was living in Modesto and he was doing okay. He had like a home health kind of thing going on, but he decided he wanted to move to Monterey. So he did that. He moved to a retirement community in Monterey. The problem is that he didn't have people coming in and cleaning his house every day, which he'd been paying for before. And so he's been in and out of the hospital several times now. He's had long-term health issues. He's had some degree of congestive heart failure now. So we're looking at a big health decline and a mobility decline, but also mental decline. And that's the really sad thing, right? If you've been around for people who've suffered that. Because my father-in-law used to work for Apple Computer, right? He was a computer engineer or software engineer. So he's a very smart guy and has worked in the biggest name in tech and was smart enough to do that. And now he can't really, he has difficulty making the correct decisions for himself and maintaining his life on his own. And we just want him to be safe, but it's always really tough to deal with. It's also a thing where I also want to communicate to people, your choices matter. Like what you inherit at the end of your life is sort of the cumulative burden of what you've done earlier in your life. And that includes abusing substances, which my father-in-law did for various parts of his life. It causes major health consequences. It's kind of like if you have COPD when you're old from smoking, it's like, maybe smoking was enjoyable. Was it enjoyable enough to have the health decline at the end of your life? Because it's not just years lost off the end of your life. It's the quality of life that you have at a certain point. And the other problem is like those things kind of gel, they accumulate. So it's not like when you're 40, you can turn your health around. When you're 30, you can lose 100 pounds and be healthy the rest of your life, right? When you're 72, you can do a little bit, but your capacity to bounce back is so severely limited. So if you've ever known someone that has that addiction cycle, they get really bad, they hit rock bottom, they bounce back, they get cleaned up. that still has effects later on in your life. So if there's a bad habit that you want to kick, now's the time to kick it. And if you know someone that's got those bad habits, whatever you can do to help them stop it and stay off of it is probably going to be good. And those are just some things that I was thinking about with that. But the vacation should be fun. I miss my family, or I miss my wife's family. They're my family too. And I'll be looking forward to seeing them and eating some actual good donuts. You can't get good donuts in Houston. I have been all over the Houston area, and the best I can get is just a hair's breadth above par, just a little bit above average. That's the best I can get. And 90% of the places I eat are below average in terms of donut quality. Modesto has one of the best donut places in the world. It's called Mr. T's Donuts. So if you're ever in Motown, I don't know, trying to scope out George Lucas's childhood home, because he actually his childhood home was like around the corner from where my sister-in-law used to live, actually. You could go to there's a diner there that I'm pretty convinced like the alien in episode 2 was based on this guy who owned this diner in Modesto. It's called Fast Eddie's, but there's just places like that in Modesto. But Mr. T's Donuts is really good. So there's all these great donut places that I've eaten in California. There's one called The Doughnut. It's closed now. It was in El Segundo. Had these monster cinnamon rolls as big as your head. They were just wonderful. You can't get that stuff in Houston. There's a kind of a place by me, but it's just, they're like made out of, they pre-order the donut mix, and they're not made with love. They're not made with love. They're just not good. So that's something I'm coming to grips with, is that people here just there's a lot of donut places, but they have really low standards. And colashes, like pig in a blanket. Like, why would I eat that? That's disgusting. There's a lot of disgusting food in any particular locale. There's always like one thing that people are eating all the time that's just disgusting. And in Houston, for whatever, I think it's colashes. I can't think of another like disgusting Houston food, because fried alligator is actually good. So that doesn't count. But, or maybe it's like the Tex-Mex. The Mexican food here is always like too bland. It's just not right, Anyway, so I'm looking forward to the donuts, Next thing on my mind, low impedance pickups for guitar. So I got my neighbor's guitar. I didn't buy it, but I fixed it up for him. He's like, I have this guitar under my bed that I bought for my son. His son had died this year. Unfortunately, it was very sudden and sad. But this guitar that he bought off a guy at like a gas station. He needed gas money, and it was stuck under this bed for 30 years with no strings on it. It's a Gibson Les Paul recording guitar. I should have put it on the wall. It's a really unique guitar. It has low impedance pickups. If you don't know that much about guitar, most guitars have high impedance pickups. Most of the guitar equipment that you are going to use is designed to respond to high impedance pickups. We're talking like in the 250K to 500K range for their impedance values, right? Very high. Whereas your headphones are like, I have 300 ohm headphones. Yeah, guitars are like way above that. But low impedance pickups are operating again in that lower range, like 500 ohms. But they're way lower output. So you're talking lower impedance, higher current. And if you try to use them with regular equipment, it'll be way lower output. So you have to have a special setup to use these kinds of guitars. But if you can get them to work, and I've worked on getting this Gibson guitar to work, you get tones that you have never gotten on an electric guitar. They are just incredible. It's to the point where I'm like, I have to experiment with high impedance pickups. That's like the next quest for me, especially because most of the guitar work that I do now is clean. It's not running into a high gain amp where you're trying to slam the front of that amp with a really high output, high impedance pickup and really saturate the mid range and saturate the sound. I'm doing a lot of layering of clean effects, and that high impedance guitar, that Les Paul recording guitar, it's from like 1971. It's not a super sought after vintage guitar because it doesn't play well with most things. It's the guitar Les Paul himself used, and he would just plug it directly into a mixer. So if you can plug it into a microphone preamp and then run effects, it's like you don't even need an amplifier to shape the tone at all. You can go like mic preamp. You could use a mixer preamp with like a 3-band EQ. That's pretty much all you need, and that's going to be the same as like you would have on a clean guitar amp. Run into your effects and then into a power amplifier. And you have an incredible sound. The harmonics on them are so clear. You can get so many tones out of them. It's like an acoustic. It's like a piezo pickup on steroids, but with none of the downsides, or with almost none of the downsides. So they're really cool. I would love to be able to set up a guitar. I found one company that makes low impedance pickups, and they have like open source design for them, so you could make your own as well, and you can even buy like separate modules for them. You can do things like split them out and have like full stereo spread on your strings if you want to. There's all kinds of cool things you can do with low impedance pickups. So my mind's just churning like how to use that guitar, because I do want to do a video on this is how you actually use the Les Paul recording guitar. The craziest Les Paul you've never heard. You've probably actually heard Les Paul play it, but like no one uses this guitar and no one knows how to use this guitar. I look on YouTube and nobody actually knows how to properly use this guitar to get the tones, is what it feels like. But I find guys on old forums, search those ancient forums, get past the dead internet of garbage and get to the forums, the private forums, the Les Paul forums from like 2012. And you find guys who own the guitars and they're like, this is what I do with it. And I play jazz with it. And you get this great, beautiful bell-like tone if you just dial it in like this. And here's how the decade switch works. And it's like, okay, that I know where to start now in adapting this into my workflow. And I recorded a piece on my music channel that uses that. I'm able to plug directly into my push and use my push as a standalone looper and everything. And the amp sims on that sounded fine when it was plugged directly in. It was very low noise. There's problems with low impedance pickups besides the fact that your equipment doesn't want to respond to that signal. It wants to respond to either line level signals, which are high output low impedance, or but not instrument level low impedance. It doesn't want to respond to those. But a microphone preamp will do it. So you can get a 1/4 inch to mic adapter and just plug into a microphone preamp or on a mixer, and it's like, this guitar is amazing. It sounds like an acoustic guitar in all sorts of interesting ways. It has that full clarity of the treble that you're just missing with most electric guitars. It's just it's a great sound. So I'm really thinking more seriously about like, okay, I'm going to think really outside the box for my sound now. I'm going to do low impedance pickups, and because I've done 100 improvs, I'm going to do this a big long improv that I'm still working on, like getting all 4 sections of it together. I'm going to call it like the Improv Symphony. I'm going to get that recorded this week before I leave. I'm going to try to, and that'll be interesting, but I'm going to have to use a traditional guitar for that because I want to run through this crazy synth pedal here, the Maris Enzo X, and the Les Paul recording guitar does not work. It does not work with the Enzo. It does not play with the Enzo X. The Enzo X can't detect the pitches coming out of the Les Paul recording guitar. Even though on my mic pre's, it's like it can be close to peaking them, like with the right, with the right gain. But even if I turn on the high impedance transformer built into it, so it's it still won't work with it. There's something about that signal. It just doesn't have the right sound profile for that plug-in synth to work, and I really want to use it. So I'm probably going to use my Parker Fly to produce that piece of music, and I'm going to let go trying to get the Les Paul recording to do this big piece of music, and instead design something specifically, design a document that's and an improvisation approach that's really for that guitar, to make that guitar be really beautiful and shine and show just how incredible low impedance pickups can be in the right hands, in the hands of somebody who knows how to operate the machine. Very often, the ideal guitar for most players is this Hello Kitty guitar. And I'm not joking when I say that. One pickup, one volume. Those are the only controls that you really need for like 80% of players. There's a reason a lot of punk players play one. Yeah, Eddie Van Halen played with one pickup forever. Like for all of those early albums, he was like on bridge pickup. A lot of guys in the 80s just play with one pickup. It's a really good setup. It's very underrated to have a simple guitar setup that does that. That doesn't have a bunch of controls to get in the way. But for what I'm doing, lots of layering, which is what Les Paul did in the recording studio. Clean tones. He wanted clean tones. This is not a guitar for playing heavy rock. You can make it do that if you're like committed to doing it, but it would be easier and cheaper to just buy a better guitar for that. Just buy that, or buy like, whatever guitar you want for that. Buy a traditional Les Paul. Right. And then I say traditional, that this is an old guitar, but you know what I mean? Like a 2 humbucker, 4 knob traditional Les Paul will be better for that. Have any of you used low impedance pickups besides like piezo pickups? And this is the other thing too, is like no one uses low impedance pickups, but I think they would be like amazing for worship bands, you know, to get all of those clean, sparkly acoustic tones they want, but without the problems of the piezo and the feedback on the acoustic guitar and all that kind of stuff. Using a Les Paul recording and then like a mic preamp and like those, the big sky pedals and stuff that they like to use in modern worship bands. I bet that would be an incredible sound, and guys would be able to get really beautiful guitar sounds out of their worship bands. And I'm not even into worship band music, but I'm like, wow, like a competent worship band guy would get so much out of a guitar like that, and he's not even aware it exists. He has no idea about it because no one talks about it. No one tells him about the things Les Paul himself used and why he used them. Why did he use low impedance pickups? Because he was trying to get rid of distortion, and the amp adds distortion. The high impedance pickups add distortion. He wanted it to be like an acoustic guitar, clear, clean, bell-like, and that's what you get with those. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to do that. Maybe I can get some of these low impedance pickups. And like, I don't want to change my current Strat, but maybe I'll get another Strat, like get a Player Plus Strat, or maybe I'll do it to my Meteora, you know, but probably a Player Plus Strat, because then I could do three pickups. That'd be probably pretty good. Last thing, fiction plans. So I'm releasing King Leopard. This one will be out, and I'm feeling a sense of relief in that I can be done with indie fiction for a little while. I wouldn't say I'm going to be done with it forever, but I have a better idea of how to adjust what I'm doing for the new market. Rapid release, trying to farm your crap out to ghostwriters and now AI. It's so fake, you know, and there's no reason to play that game unless you're really going to play it. If you want to be the guy who has robot books that like peg different subgenres, I guess you can be that guy. Don't call yourself a writer because you're not actually writing, right? So that should go without saying. Like, having the robot run the marathon for you does not make you a runner. But you can do that if that's what your business is. I think it's doomed to fail because it's too efficient for everyone else to do that. So the market will just be destroyed by AI. So the Amazon market, although I'm asking for like Amazon reviews, it's a dead area now. I think it's going to die. I think it's going to fall off a cliff for anyone that's like a normal. I think there'll be this gap between the top authors that are kind of like Brandon Sanderson, you know, kind of top authors, and they'll still do great on Amazon because Amazon sells everything, and people will still go there to buy, you know, whatever the new Brandon Sanderson book is, Wind and Truth, which I should read, and maybe I will. It's kind of cool to get like a big giant hardback and feel like I'm digging into a big book. This is a big book too, by the way. It's 550 pages. It's as big as you're allowed to publish on Amazon, right? I formatted it so that it's like, this is the maximum length that you're allowed to publish a hardback on Amazon. Before I started to get into like really oddball cuts, like the big, you know, the huge books I do, you know, the anthologies that are like 10 books crammed into 500 or 600 pages, but on like 8.5 by 11. So without having to get like a weird cut size, that's as big as you can get for a hardback. Anyway, so what I think I'm going to do going forward is I'm not going to focus on trying to release things all the time. I will have things, of course, if you're a Patreon member, you get the free stuff, right? You get the copies of all the live rights. That includes Prince of Dusk. You can read the first draft of that. I have it as just one book on the Patreon. So if you're a patron, you can just read that. You can read everything that I wrote live last year and this year. And that's great. And same thing with Sorcerer's Blood. So you can just read those books and they're yours, you know? So I'll continue to have that stuff happen. But for, I think, you know, like Moonsong is one thing that's been kind of hanging over my head that I need to finish up. And it's not really, it's a popular book series. It's one of my more popular series for sure. But it's mainly because my wife wants to see the end of the story, and that book started as something that I wrote for her. So I want to finish that up. What I'll probably do is come out with a mega omnibus of all 6 Moonsong books. There's 3 out right now. So we'll have those 3, and then we'll have the next 3. 4 and 5 are written. 5 needs to be pretty heavily revised, and 6 is still in its like roughest form right now. So that really needs to be written and, done. And once those things are done, then I'll have like a giant, maybe 2-book omnibus. First one will be 1, 2, 3. Second one will be 4, 5, 6, and we'll sell that on Kickstarter as like a 2-book set. And that's the way that I want to release the books, if I'm going to release them, because I think that that's just a better way to do it. And then you're just dealing directly with fans. You're making something special. It's everything at once. You're not trying to worry about the robot. How am I going to tickle the robot for this book release? It's not have to worry about any of that stuff. And then they'll come out on Amazon too, with the like standard 4, 5, 6 formatting, whatever it is. But that's probably the only thing that I'm really interested in doing in terms of putting out books. I've mentioned that I have books sitting around that need to come out. I don't know what I want to do with those, or even if I want to release them. I'm not very hot on like the indie fiction scene and the indie fiction market right now, and so I'm just not wanting to engage very much with it. So I'll do special projects. I already have a crap ton of books out. I have done a lot of books in my life, so I don't have the need to like put any more trophies on the wall of like, I wrote a book, damn it. Yeah, I did that. The first time I wrote a book, I was like, I wrote a book, damn it. And then I wrote another and another and another and another and another and another, and eventually writing books, like having an achievement called I wrote a book, is not that important. And what's important is, just putting out the things that I care about, right? Or doing the things I care about every day. And I feel like this oncoming feeling of relief of like not having to think about indie fiction after this week, right? I'll release the book and promote the book a little bit, and then I just don't really want to deal with the scene at all. I want to disengage from it. I might delete my Twitter, so I might go away from that, or I might start like a Twitter alt and just like abandon my main account or deactivate it, so I don't have to like worry about it or think about it. I pull myself out a lot of the group chats and things like that. Distance myself from certain people that are just going down roads that I don't want to follow. And I'm sick of the toxicity. I'm sick of the fakeness of indie fiction. I don't want to deal with it anymore. So I'm going to choose not to. That's how I'm feeling about it. And I'm looking forward to being able to choose not to do that anymore, to do things really on my own terms. You can call it indie fiction if you want. I don't know what you want to call it, but I'll do things on my own terms. And if they don't get done on those terms, then it's okay for them to not be done. I don't care. I don't care anymore about that. So anyway, thanks for watching this. That's my thoughts for this week. I'll probably have another one next week. Grab King Leopard while the grabbing is good, and I hope you'll enjoy this story. It's classic fantasy. I'll do another video exactly about what's in it, because I've done this. I've talked about it several times. About a guy named Fulbert. He's the king of Ronia, the leper king of Ronia. He doesn't actually have leprosy. That's not a big spoiler. You find that out kind of in the first chapter, but everyone is afraid of him because he has that appearance, right? He has this ruined physical appearance and he looks awful. And so he has this idea of like, he hears about this daughter of a noblewoman kind of in the neighboring borderlands of the next kingdom over, which actually there's a map of it over here. Ardaland, right? This one. Okay. So she's blind. And so he's like, this is a woman that can possibly love me because my visage is so ruined. I'll see if a blind woman wants to court me, because that's the only person who can love me. So you have a little bit of a love story that kind of develops there out of what would be an arranged marriage. That's disrupted by a whole lot of political intrigue as people are trying to kill him and get him off the throne and seize his power. And he meets some very interesting mercenaries. You will recognize them from the very first Eternal Dream book. They're Helga and Trindle and Fairlinda and Helga's husband. He's in this as well. And they're on a quest to find a magical artifact. And there's some information for it that's in Fulbert's kingdom. He runs into them. They help him out. And he decides that this magical talisman might be able to solve some of his problems that he's got going on. And so they go on a quest to find it. And then you'll find out how all of that shakes down if you read the book. There's a lot of story in here. I didn't even get through, that's the first little bit of the book. Okay. There's a lot going on in there. So check it out. And if you read it and you bought it on Kickstarter, please do leave a review or consider leaving a review if you feel like it, or at least drop some stars. And I appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a great, great day.